Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and Michael Myers. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at the 2018 remake to the original, simply titled Halloween. 40 years after Michael's fateful night with Laurie, he once again manages to escape Smith's Grove and descend onto Haddonfield. This time Laurie, who is a bit of a drunken, paranoid hermit, is ready for him though. As Michael hacks and slashes through the town, Laurie tries to prepare her daughter and granddaughter for the violence heading straight for them. After Rob Zombie announced he would not return for a Halloween 3, Dimension tried relentlessly to push a sequel forward, some of which were straightforward follow-ups, and others were strange ideas like mockumentaries trying to pick up Paranormal Activity money. Thank God those didn't happen. After years of postponed projects, Dimension actually lost the rights to the franchise. They reverted back to Miramax and the Akkads, who teamed up with Blumhouse and Universal to bring Michael back to the big screen. John Carpenter signed on as an executive producer, making this the first Halloween he was involved in since Season of the Witch. He had spent decades more or less bad-mouthing the slew of crappy sequels that had come out, but he actually wanted to jump back in the ring and see if he could bring Michael back to his roots. David Gordon Green, who has directed The Sitter, Joe, and the upcoming Hellraiser series, was brought in to direct. He co-wrote the script with Your Highness's Danny McBride and Vice Principal's Jeff Fradley. The three of them have partnered on a ton of projects together, but this is pretty much their first foray into horror. After some brainstorming, the writers agreed to ignore all of the sequels and directly follow up the original. That means Laurie and Michael are not related, there's no Jamie Lloyd or John Tate, and sadly for everyone, there's no Busta Rhymes in this universe. Consulting Carpenter throughout the project, their goal was to bring the mystery back to Michael, making him an almost supernatural force of nature. We of course have the triumphant return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie, who is now a weathered, drunken survivalist who lives in paranoia over Michael's return. In this storyline, Laurie did raise a family, and her daughter Karen is played by Judy Greer from Arrested Development. Her daughter Allison is played by Andy Matichak from Assimilate. Loomis is also deceased in this timeline, so his predecessor, Dr. Sartain, is played by Haluk Bilginer from Stuck Apart. A few more notable characters include Deputy Hawkins, played by Will Patton, Allison's boyfriend Cameron, played by Dylan Arnold, and Karen's husband Ray, played by Toby Huss. The role of Michael was landed by actor and stunt performer James Jude Courtney from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Babylon 5, and When a Man Loves a Woman. The role was also reprised by the OG Nick Castle, who by this point has had a successful writing and directing career working on Escape from New York, Hook, and Major Payne. He really only plays Michael in one shot, but he also performs all of the breathing we hear for him in the film. Courtney based his movements on Castle's original performance, but also spent a lot of time watching the way his cat would stalk prey, which I think is a really interesting choice. Michael Simmons handled cinematography, with Paul Daly and Stuart Cantrell working the camera. Carpenter himself composed the score with his son Cody and Daniel Davies, and effects master Christopher Nelson handled the visual effects. He created this new Michael mask, designing it to look weathered the way a 40-year-old mask would in real life. Halloween 2018 had a budget of somewhere between 10 and 15 million, but apparently 75 million went to advertising the movie, and it paid off. The movie ended up making 255 million at the box office, becoming the most financially successful Halloween by a fucking landslide. According to Wikipedia, that makes Halloween the 38th highest grossing horror movie of all time, and it's helped the franchise be the 20th highest grossing with all the films included. It's been met with some of the most widely positive reviews out of the sequels, currently holding a 79 and 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Supporters appreciate the boatloads of fan service and the return of Michael's ominous, creepy presence, while critics have found some fault in archetypal characters and a kind of meandering script at times. I didn't get to watch Halloween 2018 when it first hit theaters, but I did enjoy watching it at home. Technically, it's one of the best made Halloween sequels, but I did find more faults in the script than I would have liked to. It's been a couple of years though, and I didn't come to it with the fresh Halloween knowledge that I am now, so I'm curious to see how my opinion changes. I hope y'all brought some banh mi's, cause we're watching Halloween 2018. The movie opens with some classic opening credits as we re-enter Smith's Grove and meet Aaron and Dana. These two are true crime podcasters, and they've been given access to meet with Michael in their goal to get him speak after 40 years of silence. They're met by Dr. Sartain, and they thank him for this opportunity as Michael is about to be transferred to a maximum security prison. Sartain has researched Michael most of his life as he was a student of Dr. Loomis and took over after his death. He escorts them to their outdoor space resembling a zoo enclosure with Michael right in the middle, and he tells the podcasters not to underestimate the killer. They approach Michael, and Aaron introduces himself, and he attempts to ask Myers a bunch of questions. Mike isn't feeling too chatty, so Aaron whips out his infamous mask, which he apparently was able to borrow from the Attorney General. This causes the other patients to start freaking out in generic ways, but even as Aaron begs, Michael won't say a word. Now we get the whole opening credit sequence, which features a rotten pumpkin reversing back to life, and we get an even clearer image of Michael wielding his knife in the jack-o'-lantern. Aaron and Dana return to Haddonfield, where they plan to interview a hopefully more talkative Laurie Strode. Laurie is known as a recluse, and she is not very receptive to the wannabe journalists, but a payment of $3,000 gets them through the gates. They pull up to her high-security home, and after unlocking like 6 different locks, Laurie allows them inside. She couldn't give a shit less about their previous awards and tells them there is nothing to learn about Michael's 1978 massacre. Aaron says he doesn't believe Michael is the boogeyman, and Laurie tells him he should. They want to understand why Michael chose her all those years ago, but Laurie dismisses that idea. They change the subject to Laurie's troubled life following the attack, such as 2 failed marriages and the removal of her daughter by the state, and that gets them a swift goodbye. Aaron proposes that she sit down with Michael so the two can attempt to have a discussion, which gets them an even swifter goodbye. Time to meet Laurie's hash brown cooking daughter Karen, her mouse killing husband Ray, and new National Honor Society member Allison. They're celebrating this achievement at dinner tonight, where they'll meet her new boyfriend Cameron, who is the son of Lonnie, that boy Loomis yelled at in the original. Allison asks her mom if she invited Grandma, and it's very clear she did not. She complains about this to her friend Vicky and her boyfriend Dave, and they're all weirdly upset Allison can't hang out with her grandma all the time. She says the whole family gets real weird around Halloween, and she describes Laurie as obsessed with Michael and that Halloween night being her defining characteristic. We confirm Laurie and Michael aren't related, and Dave murders this poor innocent pumpkin. Time to meet boyfriend Cameron, who is excited for the Halloween dance tomorrow night and their Bonnie and Clyde costumes. Allison is more worried about him meeting her family, but he reassures her with a kiss. Here comes this movie's main source of awkward comic relief, Cameron's friend Oscar. Oh great, another goddamn classroom scene. I believe this is the 4th in the franchise. But this time it's Laurie outside, and she gives her granddaughter the $3,000 and suggests she go to Mexico. Allison asks her why she's never been able to get over Michael, denouncing all of her preparation and seclusion as being pointless, but Laurie justifies her questionable parenting. Then she goes home and shoots up her army of mannequins and cleans up her guns for tonight. The podcasters listen to an old tape of Loomis in which he advises Michael should be killed to keep the world safer, and he and some other patients are prepped for their bus ride. Sartain is joining Michael on the bus, and drunk-ass, gun-toting Laurie freaks out as they leave Smith's Grove. The Nelsons are having a lovely dinner with Cameron, and Allison once again questions her mom on if she reached out to Grandma. Speak of the devil, drunk-ass Laurie is here to chug wine and cry about her urge to kill Michael. The very unsupportive family mostly just tries to shut her up, and Allison follows her outside. Karen decides since there is an audience that this is the best time to share her childhood with Allison, which involves guns, fighting, and a secret basement I'm sure we'll see later. She feels sorry for her mom, but has spent too long getting over that trauma to truly feel empathy for her. Meanwhile, a father and his raspy dancing son named Lumpy are driving when they run into a busload of escaped Smith's Grove patients. Dad hops out to help while Lumpy calls the police, and later hops out with his gun to find his dad. He finds a nearly dead cop who tells the boy to run, and he searches for his dad on the bus. Sartain pops up and Lumpy shoots the doctor and runs back to the truck where Michael is waiting for him. Michael bashes Lumpy against the window and kills the boy with a pretty quick neck snap. R.I.P. Lumpy. Deputy Hawkins is playing pinball with his buddy when he gets called out to the bus crash, and he quickly arrives and calls in for backup. He finds some dead officers, dead Lumpy's dad, and a not-so-dead Dr. Sartain. It's Halloween day, and these two dimwits are visiting the grave of Judith Myers. Michael watches as they recap his very first murder utilizing some of the original footage. Sheriff Barker joins Hawkins at the hospital and informs him most of the escaped patients have been wrangled. Hawkins points out that Michael, clearly the most dangerous of the group, is still missing, but Barker isn't too worried about it. Michael follows the podcasters to a gas station, and while Dana goes to drop a deuce, Mikey kills himself a mechanic. Michael enters the bathroom and methodically checks each stall until he reaches Dana's and finds it occupied. Aaron finds a clerk with his jaw nearly removed and a mechanic with his coveralls completely removed. Michael presents Dana with a fistful of Tooth Fairy dollars, and as he breaks in, she tries to escape under the stalls. She's able to lock herself into a different stall, and Aaron rushes in to find Michael. He smacks Mike with a crowbar, but is quickly overpowered and has his head smashed into walls and stalls a bunch of times. As Aaron maybe dies from his wounds, Michael lifts Dana up and quickly strangles her to death. Mikey heads to their car and finds his old mask, and with his outfit finished, he's ready to get the party started. Lori hears word of the bus accident and prepares for war, unveiling the secret basement under her kitchen island. Karen arrives home to find the back door open, and she and Ray are ambushed by Lori, who scolds them for their lack of security. She tells them the bus crashed and they need to hunt down Michael together, but the Nelsons don't want to hear her delusional rants and send her away. Hawkins looks over the gas station murders, and as he spots Lori in the crowd, Barker confirms this was Michael's doing based on the hospital gown at the scene. We learn Hawkins was there during Michael's capture after the '78 massacre, and he says they need to hunt him down. Night falls and Mike bumps into another boombox cowboy, which kicks off the best part of the movie. In a fantastic long take, he wanders into a backyard shed and acquires a hammer, moseys into a kitchen where he kills a woman making a sandwich, and upgrades to his preferred weapon. He continues through the house and politely spares a baby and heads back outside, where he scares a woman who is luckily leaving, and he watches the next door neighbor as she gets word of the gas station murders. He makes his way around back, and as the woman starts closing her blinds, Michael sticks the big ol' knife through the back of her neck. We jump to the Halloween dance, where Allison and Cameron are actually gender swapped Bonnie and Clyde, cool I guess, and after a dancing montage she gets a call from Vicky. She's stuck babysitting this funny little smart mouth named Julian, and Allison ignores her grandmother's call. Vicky invites them over to drink after the dance, and she and Julian have some banter before she gets him ready for bed. They're actually very sweet, and it's a rarity to like side characters in this franchise, so that's a fun change of pace. Oscar and Cameron are getting wasted off some flasks they snuck in, and Allison finds Cammy Boy kissing a tiger on the dance floor. He tries to pretend they were just chatting, and his slurred speech tells Allison he's too drunk to argue with. Her phone starts ringing, and Cameron throws it into some nasty liquid cheese. I mean, that's kinda gross, but Allison actually dips without her phone. Your time to shine, Oscar. Dave sneaks up on Vicky and shows off a new tattoo of tonight's date, as it will be something to remember, which gets him some makeout time on the couch. Vicky hears a noise and Julian runs down to tell them somebody was watching him from the hallway. Vicky offers to find this boogeyman, and after playing a prank on Julian, she tells him his room is safe. Dave goes outside to have a smoke when he notices a sick motorcycle in a shed, I guess. Julian asks her to shut the closet door, but it won't shut all the way, probably due to the Michael Myers hiding inside. Julian and Vicky run, but she slips on nothing and falls, and Dave hears her scream for help. Julian warns him not to go upstairs, and Michael stabs Vicky to death. Dave grabs a knife of his own and heads upstairs, and the cops and Lori get word of a 911 call from the house. Of course, Hawkins is the first at the scene, but Lori isn't far behind. Hawkins makes his way to Julian's room, where he spots a slightly bloody ghost in the corner. It's the body of Vicky, and Hawkins' yell is heard by Lori, who looks up to see Michael is just rooms away from him. She shoots a bullseye, but it's just a reflection, and Mikey makes his way downstairs. Hawkins follows and finds Dave pinned to the wall with a knife, and Lori lands an arm shot on Michael. Hawkins sneaks up on Lori and gets an elbow in the nose, and the whole police force as well as Sartain arrive. Sartain reveals what happened on the bus, saying the driver lost control, giving Michael an opportunity to take out the guards. Hawkins doesn't trust the doctor, but Barker points out nobody understands Michael as well as he does and wants him in on the hunt. Sartain creams his pants when he sees Lori, and she simply calls him the new Loomis. Sartain shares that Hawkins was the very first officer who apprehended Michael in 1978 and actually stopped Loomis from killing him. Lori says she has prayed every night that Michael would escape so she could kill him, and Hawkins says that was dumb. Oscar is walking Allison home when he starts getting real complimentary, and it's clear we have a simp on our hands. Hawkins and Sartain discuss the psychological effects that 1978 had on Laurie and Michael, and Sartain says he wants to understand what drives Michael to kill. Hawkins vows to kill Michael this time around, and Sartain don't like the sound of that. The cops and Laurie arrive at the Nelson house, and they can't locate Allison due to her cheese phone. Apparently they're going to hole up at Laurie's instead of the police station, cause you can't put Laurie's weird bomb shelter of a house to waste. And Allison and Oscar take a not-so-shortcut through some yards. He awkwardly tries to kiss her and gets rejected, and pathetically pleads for forgiveness as she leaves through the motion-lit yard. Oscar spots Michael in the shadows and mistakes him for the home's owner, and starts confiding in him. The motion lights cut off, and Mikey blocks his path to escape. The lights cut off again, and they cut back on as Michael slices Oscar and the boy tries to run. He gets caught on the fence, and Allison hears his screams and heads back. Michael stabs him in the back as the lights cut back off, and Allison finds him very, very dead. Michael says hello, and Allison makes a run for it, eventually banging on the door of a neighbor. The cops and Karen are in a big yelling match until Laurie commands them inside, and Hawkins and Sartain arrive to pick up Allison, who points them in Mikey's direction. Laurie leads Karen and Ray down into the hidey hole, which is chock full of preserved food and big-ass guns. Laurie loads them up and rambles about Michael planning this night to find her, and Hawkins spots Michael wandering the neighborhood. The deputy straight up rams Michael with his car, but Sartain gets in his way before he can shoot him, and pulls out a penknife to stab Hawkins in the neck. Allison watches as Sartain stabs him a bunch of times, and the doctor finally knows what it feels like to kill. To make things even worse, Sartain puts on Michael's mask and loads him into the back of the car with Allison. At least he takes the damn mask off quickly. But now his stupid ass plan is to reunite him and Laurie to see if it's his passion to kill her that drives him. God, this is stupid. While two funny cops in front of Laurie's house discuss banh mi's and brownies, Sartain continues with his self-righteous bullshit. When he mentions he's never heard Michael speak, Allison tries to bargain her freedom by saying he spoke to her. He reluctantly pulls over within the sight of the munchy cops, but Mikey wakes up and kicks out the partition. The cops try to contact Hawkins, and Michael drags Sartain out into the street as Allison runs into the woods. As the cops approach, Sartain begs Michael to say something, but all he gets is a face full of boot. The cops hop out to investigate and spot squished Sartain, but not Michael right behind them. Ray notices a cop car pull up outside and tries to ask about Allison, only to find the cops killed. One via penknife and one via being turned into a jack-o'-lantern. Ray quickly joins the body count via strangulation and neck snapping, but he at least shoots a shot to warn the ladies. Laurie and Mike spot each other, and she sends Karen down below. Michael smashes through the glass and bashes Laurie's face into the door and nearly finishes her right then and there, but she manages to blow some of his fingers off with her shotgun. She turns on her floodlights and joins Karen in the basement, and Michael makes his way inside. Laurie blows their position by shooting at Michael beneath the floor, and she heads upstairs to find him. She checks a few likely hiding spots and uses some ridiculous gates to close off rooms that she clears. Meanwhile, Allison runs her way into Laurie's supposed to be scary mannequin range and screams, I guess. Laurie, why do you have a bedroom full of mannequins? She finds a blood trail leading to a closet, but it's just Ray's body, which I guess Michael dragged in. Michael jumps out from behind a mannequin and grabs a hold of her, and despite her best efforts, Michael is able to stab her. She bites his hand and he throws her through a window and off the balcony, and as Allison heads inside, we officially enter Fan Service City. Karen heads up and brings Allison below, but now Mikey knows y'all are hiding in the floor. He starts prying the kitchen island off the floor, and Karen grabs her childhood gun. She readies her aim as Michael rips the island out, but Mikey doesn't appear. Karen pretends to break down, which coaxes Michael's face out into shooting range. Laurie appears from the darkness to stab Michael and smacks him with a frying pan down into the basement. Allison climbs up, but Michael grabs a hold of Karen. The parents tell Allison to run, but she instead grabs the knife and stabs Michael in the shoulder and slices his hand to release her mom. Laurie kicks him down and releases some absurd bars to trap Michael inside. She starts releasing gas into the basement as Karen explains to Allison this room wasn't to protect them but to trap Michael. Laurie lights a flare and says farewell to Michael, and he simply stares up at her as the room catches ablaze. Gas is set up all over the house to ensure full burning potential, and Allison flags down some random guy to help them. Laurie's house is engulfed in flames, but we never specifically see Michael, and the movie ends with the Strode women riding away into the night. But there is also the sound of Michael breathing right after the credits. And that's Halloween 2018. It's a pretty solid return for Michael and the franchise as a whole. I think they were pretty successful in capturing the dreadful waiting that the original utilized so well. The fear doesn't come from gore in this one, it comes from wondering where Michael will pop up next. James Jude Courtney does a fantastic job as Michael, and does a great job replicating Nick Castle's movements, as well as adding his own flair. The kills are decent, most of them don't really stand out, but Sartain's, as well as a lot of the off-screen kills, were pretty gruesome. But I do have some pretty big issues with the movie, and they all stem from the script. The dialogue in the film feels like a script, and characters are constantly spewing exposition as if the audience couldn't pick anything up from simple subtext. Nobody talks like a realistic human would in these situations, and the only realistic sounding conversations are in there for comic relief, which I feel like there was also a little bit too much of. I also think they took the PTSD Laurie thing a bit too far. She just doesn't feel like a real human being, if I'm being honest. You've spent your entire life waiting for a mentally ill patient who tried to kill you once to come directly for you if he escapes a sanitarium. Move to a different town maybe. And quite frankly, she was wrong. If it weren't for the stupid decision to make Sartain a villain, Michael would have never escaped in the first place. If not for him, Michael would have peacefully been transferred to a prison and he would have died there. I hate everything about the Sartain arc, and if it was cut from the movie, it would be a better film. Also, fuck those mannequins. They're just another unnecessary addition that are trying to be cool and scary, and they also make Laurie seem even more deranged. I do think Jamie Lee Curtis kills it as Laurie, and all of the cast does a great job. It just seems like the script is too focused on fan service and spoon-feeding us information. Technical stuff like the cinematography, music, and sound design are all top-notch, and I think the look of the film helps disguise some of those weaker parts in the script, which is something a lot of the Halloween movies don't have going for them. I appreciate the way the movie retained aspects and themes of the original, but updated them for a modern audience. I think it will at least hold up better than H2O did. It's definitely on the better side of the Halloween sequels, which isn't saying a ton, but it can at least stand on its own. It would have been a decent end for the franchise, but obviously news of the trilogy broke pretty quickly after the film's success. I think this was a solid first entry and a solid foundation for Green and McBride, and I'm very excited about what they have in store for us in Halloween Kills. Speaking of, next week I'll be covering Halloween Kills. It'll be a bit different than my usual reviews, as I don't think I can get away with using the footage quite yet without big copyright issues, so it'll be more of a response than a recap, and I'll try to save any spoilers for the end. Well, that's about it. Thank you all for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Halloween 2018. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with my weekly horror reviews. And if you want to help support the channel further, be sure to check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.